Our guest today is Bruce Goldman from AgriMed Industries, and we're pleased to have him with us, an old Germantown guy, Dogtown brother, and who's doing great things in the community and has a very forward-thinking vision about entrepreneurship and how that can improve our community on a holistic level. Welcome, brother.
Thank you very much.
Hey, man, good to see you.
Good to see you after a long time, Rick.
Yeah, good to see you, man.
So, AgriMed. I retired from a career, first of all, as Rick pointed out, I was born and raised in Germantown. And I graduated from Germantown High School a long time ago. I graduated from Lincoln University a long time ago, the Lincoln University. And I graduated from Yale University a long time ago. And those educational experiences led me to a career as a hospital executive and healthcare executive. And as I started thinking about retirement, I guess about 4 years ago, I was wondering what was I going to do. And I really didn't think that I was going to stay in healthcare at all. And somehow I found out about cannabis, but at the time it was recreational cannabis. And it didn't take much, two and two to put that together and realize that there could be a lot of money in it. And I was thinking of it in those terms, purely entrepreneurial. And coming out of the standard traditional healthcare community, nobody was talking about cannabis. So I certainly didn't get the idea from that. So I went out to Washington State to look into what was going on. And that's when I found out about everything that was going on with medical cannabis. I mean, it was shocking to me, And another thing which I'll tail in and out of is industrial hemp. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I was struck by all of the different kinds of people from science that were at this conference, and there were close to 800 people there. So, I didn't see very many African Americans, but, I spent 40 years in healthcare and didn't see a whole lot of African Americans. Right. That wasn't unusual.
Especially in administration.
Right, So, the more investigation I did, the more I realized that there really was a lot to what was going on in terms of medical cannabis. But that the reason you didn't hear a lot about it in the United States was that it was virtually impossible to even do studies because of laws that the federal government had put in and so forth. So where you saw studies were from Canada and Israel and places like that. And in the United States, even though our healthcare system isn't really all that great, we're still very judgmental about research that comes from other countries. Nonetheless, I discovered it was a grassroots movement. And at the time, and this would be 2013 or so, there were maybe 15 states with medical cannabis programs of one type or another. Now we're up to 29, So I got involved with some people and we started a company in Maryland and we didn't win, to make a long story short. And there's been a lot of controversy around that, minority representation and all. But I don't know that we didn't win for that reason, looking back on the win that we would later have in Pennsylvania. This has been the first time we did it. We were doing it by the skin of our teeth in terms of capital. And I'm sure all those things played in. So we didn't win. But through the process, I met a guy named Sterling Crockett who was with a group that did win, but they got robbed. This is just my editorial. And at the end of the day, they came in 12th out of 143 companies for 15 licenses. And then they and another group that finished 8th were mysteriously moved out over some issue that got created at the end called geographic diversity. In other words, they felt that
it was all
the
lumped in
awardees were all lumped
one,
too
yeah,
closely together,
right.
and somehow those two got pulled out.
Yeah.
So,
Wonder why.
and Sterling's company was a minority. They had a nice minority chunk of investors, but it wasn't a minority company per se. So anyway, we met through this process, and we were talking about it just the other day on September the 3rd, 2016. We decided that we were going to just leave Maryland behind and focus on Pennsylvania. And being from Pennsylvania, I was paying attention to what was going on. I just moved back. And I liked the idea that Pennsylvania was not going to allow you to sell flower. That you were going to have to extract the various components out and really make medicine out of it.
Right.
I knew that in the discussions that I had had with doctors and nurses, that you were never going to convince anybody that anything was going to be medicine that you had to smoke. Certainly not after the whole campaign that and rightfully so, that the medical industry has gone through in terms of getting people to stop smoking tobacco. And then there was this other issue of how do you dose it, you know, which drawing the compounds out and putting them in the milliliters and grams and all of that allows you to do that. So I started to see how this could be applied as medicine, and I was meeting too many people who just couldn't be making this up for me, that were going way beyond, you know, it helps with my appetite. I mean, you know, you hear that for years. Or it helps you sleep, you know. But this thing about pain, and this thing about cancer, which I still don't get, and I want to see this get into the laboratory. This stuff about seizures. There just were too many people who were too unlikely, who under normal circumstances wouldn't have even gone near cannabis, but ended up listening to people who had had their own experiences, sometimes even physicians, who would tell them that they couldn't prescribe it for them. Miraculously, they were seeing positive results with patients they were treating through chemotherapy and all this other stuff. So that's how I got, you know, all hooped up in this. And then it was the incredible business opportunity. Because what if everybody is wrong about everything that they've been saying about it? I mean, I find it kind of funny, I guess I can say it this way. I find it kind of funny that it turns out that quite a few black middle class people seem to have an issue with cannabis, not based on any real knowledge, actually.
No scientific basis,
but based on things that people say, when we have had, as a people, a legacy of having to deal with what people think of us because of just things that people say, only for so much of it to be proven not to be true.
Or even when you look at our connection with the so-called health care industry and how we've been disrespected and abused in that, that has to weigh in on some of the. So that in a way, what you're doing is solving several problems all at once, really.
Well, you know, with my original consideration about going into it, which I said was recreational, I had no idea that I was going to end up doing exactly what you said. And that really came into form when we decided to do AgriMed. Because to get back to the point of not selling flour and basically selling extractions in medical forms and in measurable forms, it made me realize that what we were really needing to do was to create a medical company. And with the health department being primarily responsible for the program in Pennsylvania, I think that's where some of my prior experience came in. because, I had dealt with health departments in several different states, because they're all tied to hospitals and HMOs and home care, which are the kind of organizations I've been a part of. So that's essentially what we did. And we have quite a few. We don't have traditional cannabis people directly involved.
Right.
Okay, with one or two exceptions. And they're pretty young and new themselves, with careers, believe it or not, in business and law, which is the other thing I was discovering. The people that I'm meeting that are coming into cannabis are highly educated, very professional. They're coming in from all these different areas.
Now, are you meeting the people who led the challenge to roll back some of the laws, the anti-cannabis laws, or trying to write new laws that facilitate what you're doing from a medical perspective?
In the very beginning, when I was running around the conferences, yes. But in terms of the people that I'm meeting that are standing up to businesses, I'd say for the most part they're a combination of advocates for, legalization, and other people. I mean, I have to say I'm one. It wasn't like, this has been going on since, from what I can tell, the 1990s.
Okay.
I wasn't even aware it was going on.
Right.
So it's a combination of people such as myself and people who have been advocates for safe access and getting this out of criminal justice. When I became aware of how negatively this whole thing was impacting the black community, I felt to myself, African Americans need to figure out how to get into this, because there's an opportunity to go beyond just making a lot of money. There's an opportunity for the people that get in on the ground floor, such as now, to develop a lot of wealth. Okay, that can do a lot of good for a lot of people. The kind of money that the only thing left for you to do is to figure out how to give it away. And for those of us who have a lot of information that says we shouldn't get involved, we need to look a little deeper and start to learn why more and more people like myself and Sterling are getting involved.
Now, you're in on the ground floor. You're one of the few companies that came across and knocked it out of the park on a holistic level in terms of your science background, your diversity background, your business plan, all of that. So to what do you attribute that, given, like you said, you were flying by the seat of your pants in the beginning? Was it real serious research, background, and you pulling together, a fabulous team, which I'm sure you did, because I know some of the people involved with it. But what do you attribute your success? Because you beat out literally hundreds of other companies.
We got the highest winning score out of 173. And we're very proud of that.
Rightly so. Yeah.
And it's because we approached it believing not necessarily that we would, but that we could do that well. We weren't trying to just pass. We studied the application, understood that there were 1,000 points, and tried to figure out, in every section, how we had to address it so we could get the most.
So you can maximize. Right.
And again, I also have to give a lot of credit to Sterling, because he had written been part of writing a winning application before. So in spite of how things turned out. And I would also say that, you know, we got raised by a generation of people that kept telling us that we could. Yeah. And, you know, that's helped me more than anything in my journey from Germantown. You know, the parents I had and, you know, the belief system that they put inside of me. You know, Sterling is very similar, you know. So we talk about that all the time. And the roles that our dads played in our lives. You know?
You know, it's funny you mention that, because when I talk to people, and my father died when I was 3, but I still, when I talk to people about how we grew up, there was a man in every house. Like my great uncle was in my life, right? So there was a man in every house in our neighborhood, whether it was an uncle, grandfather, father, whatever. And so I think that has had a lot to do with our development and how we navigate the world that a lot of these unfortunately, a lot of young brothers don't have.
Like, it's almost like I know Sterling's grandfather as well as his dad, because, you know, he's always quoting him, but his grandfather, and we remind ourselves of this all the time, his grandfather would tell us, boy, you better act, he said, no, boy, you in the high cotton now, you better act like you've been there before, right? And so just carrying that stuff, you know, and then, and he would tell you if he was here. It's the first time in my 40 years, and I'm about 10 or 12 years older than Sterling, so he's telling me it's the first time in his 30 years that he's had someone like me, and in my case, someone like him, to really be able to fall back on.
Well, I think doesn't that help, having people with like values, like experiences, and who know? The other thing our folks told us is, like, they're gonna knock you down, so when they do, get back up, get right back up.
And that's what the Maryland experience was. I mean, people were squabbling, this, that, and the other, and, you know, we were at a hearing in Annapolis. You know, people were going all crazy because, you know, the scores come out, and, you know, nobody really that was a minority got picked. That's technically not true. It was a minority group that got a processing license. In Maryland, they had 3 separate ones: grow, process, unlike here in Pennsylvania where they're together. And then they all have dispensaries separate. And there was an African American group that got a processing license. But, you know, for if you're going to look at it in those terms, for a population that looks, the demographics that look the way Maryland looks, it should have been different.
Right.
But again, this is where I would also say that our community is going to have to do some research and not just listen to everything that's been promulgated out there, so that more people can get to the point of view of myself and Barry and Sterling and others that are involved in our company. I mean, we have a physician, Eric Mitchell, who's our medical director, looks like us. You know, I tease him around my age. So not only is it unusual to find black middle-class people getting involved in this space, it's even more unusual to get black physicians and so
Right, the
forth
technical
involved in this
expertise,
space.
right.
But, you know, Dr. Mitchell is someone that is unapologetic about it, has been involved in alternative pain management in Maine for about the last 7 or 8 years. He's well known to Philadelphia. He's a graduate of Penn's Medical School and did his orthopedic residency at the hospital at the University of Pennsylvania. I mean, very highly credentialed guy. Was part of the leadership of the North Philadelphia Health System for many, many years. So we've got folks like him involved. And, you know, part of what we want to do, you know, with our newfound success is number one, continue being successful. You know, right now as we speak, you know, we're having a groundbreaking ceremony next week. Our site is under development.
Where are your facilities located?
Greene County, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
If you picture,
So tell us a little bit about that. How
Sure,
much acreage do you have?
We have 60 acres. We're part of a 100-acre development. We're part of a much bigger development. They're going to be building a couple of power plants out there. I don't want to give away too many of our secrets, but one of the arrangements that we're going to have is going to be one of the ways that we're going to be able to challenge the competition, if you will, by having lower than average electric costs.
Right.
But Sterling has had a very successful career as an entrepreneur. These gentlemen, the Wellington Group as we call them, but they're half of the founding partners of our group. They were going to do 60 acres of tomatoes under glass, knowing greenhouses. And they were going to use coal. Ran into a lot of problems with the EPA, had to make a pivot. And as all of this was going on, Act 16 passed, which is the medical cannabis law. And the people that they were involved with on the greenhouse side, these guys are what I would call energy experts. Anything that's got to do with energy, they know about it. But it is through that they got involved with these greenhouse guys who are from Holland.
Oh, okay.
And they said, you know, we may have a solution here. We can have a much smaller project through medical cannabis, something we know a lot about, and avoid a lot of these EPA issues. Because we'll have a smaller footprint, we'll be able to do it with natural gas and all this other yada, yada, yada. So their thing was, meaning the Wellington guys, because they're older than I am, very conservative, you know, nice people, was that we don't know anything about this Wild West thing called medical cannabis in America, you know. And so they went through some due diligence, this, that, and the other, so forth and on, and they found Sterling. And they started to talk to him, and he made them see his vision. And the next thing you know, they bought on, and they could have bought on with some much more established groups,
anybody else,
but they could see, you know, what other people saw in him. And so they basically connected to Sterling, and I'm sitting here in front of you because Sterling and I just developed a really great relationship in terms of our whole back and forth and supporting each other.
Are there still opportunities for people to invest in AgriMed Industries?
Sure.
Okay, so who would, if someone saw this or heard this, who would they contact?
Well,
and how would they get a perspective?
So what they would do is they could get in touch with me. Do you have some way of putting my email address up?
Yeah, well, you just say it now, because this.
So it's Bruce.
Stopping after a certain point. So
AgriMed is spelled AgriMed. It stands for Agriculture for Medicine.
Okay. All right, so give that again, because this was off. This is on, but this was off.
Sure. It's AgriMed, Bruce, BRUCE, Goldman, GOLDMAN, at AgriMed, AgriMed Industries, all one word, INDUSTRIES.com.
Okay. Now, Barry, like you and Barry and I go back way back. And he's touted what you're doing as something that's going to be very innovative in terms of the entrepreneurial opportunities, the community involvement, and the community investment opportunities. So both of you can take turns talking about it and let our listeners know what you're planning to do, because you already mentioned it's not just about making money. You want to make a difference. So either one of you can just elaborate on it.
Bruce, because right now we're just developing as far as community involvement. That's going to be taking place in the near future once we're up and moving. But we have ideas. We'll also be doing this in Greene County as well as Philadelphia County. There's going to be pretty sure we talked about entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs that we'd like to develop.
As I pointed out in the beginning, I'm a proud graduate of Lincoln, and in our application, we wrote Lincoln in. What struck Sterling and I is that there's so much science involved with cannabis and hemp, and we're really at the very beginning. We're at the baby stages. One of the other things about the Pennsylvania approach that I liked is that they're creating some separate licenses called clinical registry licenses, which are to engage the medical schools. There will be about 6 of them. AgriMed has an interest in that as well. And
now, will you be partnering directly with the medical school?
you would.
Right.
Now, we have an interest in doing that. We're not there yet. But you would be partnering with the medical school. And the idea is that there would be 6 dispensaries that you'd be able to put anywhere in the state. Working out the local relationships,
Right,
of course, where clinical research would be going on. So, just thinking about that and thinking about how do I get my alma mater involved? How do we get other HBCUs involved? I graduated from Yale, but they can find their own way.
Yeah, they got their own money.
But I'm more concerned about working with Lincoln that made the opportunity for me to go to Yale come true. So we also have applied for an industrial hemp license. I guess 2 weeks ago at this point in South Carolina.
Okay.
And we have a similar MOU relationship with South Carolina State. We are, Sterling right now couldn't be a part of this because he just landed in Florida. He's been going back and forth to Florida. We're going to be applying we are applying in Florida right now as we speak. And only because we haven't nailed it down yet, but we were having a conversation with an HBCU down there for similar things. And the idea is internships, development of science programs, profits from the specific state, Pennsylvania for Lincoln, South Carolina for South Carolina State, Florida for whoever we work something out with. Working out where, because they're becoming a part of our companies, these subsidiaries, in the beginning, when things go well and the profits start to come in, they can benefit from that. And also, when we talk about entrepreneurship, teaching, one of the things that we were asked about in Lincoln, and one of the things that we were asked about when we were talking to an HBCU just last week was, are you guys willing to come in and start teaching about the infrastructure of the cannabis and hemp industry to our kids? Absolutely, that's why we want to do it. We're more interested in creating entrepreneurs than jobs, because the truth of the matter is that no matter what industry you go to, there aren't that many of them that are labor intensive.
Yeah.
There's this thing on
Nowadays,
TV
anyway.
that's called How It's Made.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I mean everything from shutters to peanut butter. And the thing that I started noticing is that there are not a lot of people in these these factories.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need to be thinking a lot more about creating self-sustaining things, all right, and a lot less about getting an education to get a good job.
Right.
And then passing the information along to young people who are going to get involved in these things anyway. Insurance, real estate, transportation,
Mm-hmm.
telecommunications, information systems. There are all kinds of opportunities. Packaging. Think about that.
Right.
There are all kinds of opportunities that are springing up. Security, that are springing up out of this. Because it's going from the dark, from somebody's basement or wherever, you know, to legitimate businesses that require all of these services, accounting services, legal services. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And then within that are the opportunities for innovation. Things that become intellectual property, things that become patents.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the reasons, this is the single biggest reason why Sterling and I, in every state we go to, are reaching out to HBCUs, because we think through that, that's a way of bringing our community into this.
Mm-hmm. Now, how does it feel to be on the cutting edge? Because not only are you doing something unique and innovative in terms of medicine, but you're integrating all this other technology, and you just hit on it. The old model of labor-intensive businesses is dying, and so where can
make that dead?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, you know, I was an economics major at Lincoln.
Okay.
So I started thinking macroeconomics there, you know, and I kind of always paid attention to what was going on around me. And later on, when I would learn that Philly went from 2 million people at its peak in 1970 to what, 1.4 something now, I could see that happening as a kid at Germantown. You know, in those days, the factories were moving south.
Yeah.
Eventually, they would leave the country.
Well, early on, they moved from the city to the suburb.
Right.
Then they moved to the south. And now there's globalization. Yeah.
Look, because of my career, a lot of it was in the Baltimore, Washington area. And so I drive back and forth down there from Philly because I've always had a property here. And my parents were always here until they passed away a few years ago. So I take what I call the scenic route, which is out the old Baltimore Pike, and I go by Lincoln. And around 2003, I started noticing they were building this factory. I wondered what this was. And then I saw these Tasty Cake signs go up. So I don't know if anybody knows this, but you know the Tasty Cake that's not on Huntington Park? It's right out down there by Lincoln.
What?
It's right, exactly. It's about 3 miles south on Baltimore.
Wow, okay.
Now, whether or not they've got other plants, I don't know. But that's where this one is, okay? I learned by spending so much time out in central Pennsylvania. I've been all over the state now. And Greene County, they don't make chocolate in Hershey. All their chocolate gets made in Mexico.
Whoa. Okay.
It also, you know, everyone talks about the coal jobs. Yes, absolutely. That's one of the reasons why the reception for AgriMed and pretty much most of the companies that I'm aware of has been so big is because people can see the jobs. That's another thing our community needs to start seeing. But it's because of all the jobs that have left. Something that I didn't think about that came out of one of the zoning hearings that we went to, you know, where they were like kind of clamoring for this, is that another industry that's gone south has been the dairy industry. So, you know, you go out there and you see all these rolling hills and pastures. They say that at the end of every one of those roads used to be a family dairy. All that stuff is gone. So, whether it's cannabis or a whole lot of other things, all of us as Americans, as the black community, need to start thinking in different terms about our economic survival.
Now, you're talking about moving into hemp. Correct me if I'm in error, and I think I am in error. Aren't there laws against hemp, or so how is that being processed legally? And once that hurdle is overcome, what do you? Go ahead.
It doesn't get the same bad publicity as cannabis does, because you can't quote unquote get high off of it. The THC level is oblivious, all right? But it produces CBD, which is what we're going to use it for if we get our license in South Carolina. But then beyond that, it has all these industrial applications, all kinds of building materials and things that give you alternatives to cement, give you alternatives to lumber. It gives you alternatives to oil-based products. It's incredible.
Now, mentioning that, a lot of times when people come up with those technologies, the petroleum industry and the people who support them try to suppress it and try to keep it down. So
well, you know,
without giving any proprietary secrets or anything.
No. It's like this. I'm gonna get biblical on you. You know, I'm not an organized religious person, but I was raised in the church. Okay, and so I remember all that stuff, and I just tell people, just go back to your scripture. There's plenty of examples of people seemingly defeated who were able to rise up, you know, and get past that. So there will always be David, and there will always be Goliath. And a lot of these things come from industries that over the long haul are not sustainable. And I keep telling you, man, this is a grassroots movement. And I think you know what I mean when I say grassroots movement.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if you want to get into the race thing, yeah, there's a lot of white people who are the traditional owners of these same big businesses and so forth. But there are a lot of white people who want to see these changes come.
Right.
That's why you've got 80% approval for medical cannabis and 60% approval for general legalization. And hardly anybody really, when the conversation turns to hemp, has any kind of objection to hemp.
Right.
Let me tell you a secret. One of the people that wants to get hemp removed from Schedule 1, where it's been all mixed up with cannabis, and that doesn't belong on Schedule 1 either, but just to get back to the hemp, is Mitch McConnell.
Okay. All right.
And the state that's doing the most right now with industrial hemp is Kentucky. And in spite of it running into all these federal problems, we've never been able to not use imported hemp materials for our own needs, where we get them from Canada and China.
Oh, okay.
So this is another thing that's going to unravel. And where do I think it's going to be? In 50 years, I'll be dead it will be as big as an industrial component as oil-based products.
Wow. That's a major projection. Yeah, wow. Yeah. But at
I
one
think-
time
I
it
think
was.
that
At
hemp-
one time it was.
I think that hemp will be bigger than medical cannabis or, recreational. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that term, but
Right.
either way,
Right.
I think it's going to be bigger than all that.
Do you have a website where people can go up and
Oh,
look
sure.
at your company and look at what you're doing?
www.agrimedindustries.com.
Okay. All right. Obviously there's contact
Yep.
menus there so people can contact you.
Yep.
With that. Okay.
Yep.
We're almost out of time. I'm going to go to you and I'll go to Barry. Anything that we haven't covered that you think is germane to this whole issue, what your vision and philosophy are that we haven't covered so far?
I just want to say to young people in particular, don't believe everything everybody tells you about anything. Do your own research, get your own information, and then if you come away believing in it, get with people that think some of the things that you think, put a plan together and move forward. You're going to get knocked down, but get up.
Okay. Barry?
Yeah, well, I'm going to basically let Bruce do most of the speaking for AgriMed because I basically did the government relations, and I don't want to really reveal
Okay.
a lot of things that we had to do or we had to go through on the government relations side because of the business that I'm in and what I do.
Okay.
So other than that, that's why, I'm part of the team, and we're happy to be here, and we're going to do a lot for Philadelphia.
Okay.
And
Now,
I'll close by saying
before we
that.
go, give your contact information again.
Okay.
I know you have a Facebook page, you got a website.
No, actually I don't
Or something.
have a Facebook page.
Somebody, I saw something.
I do.
Oh, okay, then. All right.
You'll see a lot of AgriMed.
Okay,
postings on
okay,
my
okay.
page.
Again, Bruce.Goldman at AgriMedIndustries.com. And you can give me a call at 301-980-7195.
And your website.
www.agrimedindustries.com.
Okay, and before you said that, I cut you off. You were getting ready to say something else, so go ahead.
Just believe in yourself, folks. I've listened throughout my life to or watched other people tell other people what they can't do, and watched other people shock the
Prove
world.
them wrong.
Okay, beginning with my idol as a kid,
Muhammad
Cassius
Ali.
Clay,
Yeah.
Muhammad Ali. That's right.
Yeah. Okay, bro.
And
Thank
by
you.
the way, we both went to Germantown High School.
Yeah, we all did. Yeah,
We all did, all
Yeah.
three of us here. And matter of fact, 65, 66, and 67.
All right.
Yeah, Dr. Highsmith, products of Dr. Charles Highsmith.
He was coming when we were leaving. Yep. Okay, bro. Thank you. I appreciate this. Man.
Okay, sure.
All right. Good job, man. Good job.
No, man, I pinched